All right, welcome in. It's Tuesday morning. Sorry, I'm just getting set up as we go here. It's $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk. It's time for full court press. Rob Vino, I have made it back to upstate New York. A little sad. I rolled in late last night. Wake up this morning. It's 5 degrees, maybe 4. So we're back home. But ready to ready to lock in on Tuesday's slate. I had a winner last night with Sacramento State, so I'm off to a 4-0 start on the month. And Rob Vino, we hit our parlay yesterday. The Syracuse Orange decided to play the last couple minutes of that game, got the spread and your team total home. How did your night go outside of the team total hit with Syracuse?
Yeah, that was a difference maker in college, Adam. 2-1. We talked about the Bethune-Cookman game on air, and I said I was going to take a little more time to make a decision on that. And the decision I came to ended up being the correct one for clients because I played Bethune-Cookman's team total over the number, which got there, and the full game total, which we discussed on air. You probably pushed. There were some 42.5s out there too. So if you got unlucky, you could have unlucky there, but not for me. Had a good one there. And then Texas Tech kind of broke my heart at the end of the game, 59-50 with the big rally. I thought that Texas Tech was in firm control until they weren't. 14-2 run, I guess, to close that game, led by Darren Peterson. So 2-1 there. Also had an NBA game. So for me, it was a 3-1 night. Very, very good.
Yeah, we'll move right along. If you want to get all the plays, we have a great package that's called the double the fire, 2 times the firepower college basketball. It's 3-day all access for myself and Rob. It's also $5 Tuesday. So what I'm going to do today, Rob, I've already got a couple plays locked in. I like this slate quite a bit. I haven't decided which one I'm going to use for the $5 play, and basically I'm just going to kind of see what comes up on the show. Because I'll probably give you at least one for free. Like I said, I think I'm going to have 3 or 4 plays. Rob, I was kind of hoping that the schedule. It's really too bad for me that this game wasn't last night because I probably would have hit it on my way back through. Also, I've behaved this year in terms of like making the feature game the big power conference game of the game of the night, whatever the big national TV power conference game is. But I looked at the schedule today, Rob, and I said, you know what? There's not like a great, like big time. Last night we had Kansas and Texas Tech. I looked, I said, there's not really that tonight. So our feature game tonight is going to be Miami of Ohio and Buffalo. I truly believe that this is the most interesting game. If you're a college basketball fan, even if you're a fair weather college basketball fan at this point, this is the most intriguing game of the night. Miami of Ohio has cracked the top 25. They've yet to lose. They're 22-0. Like I said, it kills me that I'm not going to be at this game. Buffalo's only 2.5 hours away, but been around the last couple days, so I kind of can't get back in the car and go drive 2.5 hours to a game tonight, especially when they might get some snow. But at any rate, huge game for Buffalo. They nearly won this one the first time around. Actually, they pretty much had the game won, Rob. It took a tip out 3, a missed shot, a tip out for a 3 at the buzzer, and then a buzzer beater 3 to win in overtime. So my question to you is this: Miami of Ohio, 22-0, 23rd in the country. Does their unbeaten season continue tonight?
Well, I mean, you would think that it does. A couple of things here, Adam. Situationally, like you just pointed out, yeah, Buffalo revenge from an overtime loss, a game that they were ahead in the second half late, didn't get there. So you have that little bit of revenge. You have your home floor. You have what might have been a look ahead by Buffalo on Saturday. They lost on Saturday, and a couple of quotes from the head coach who said, "I don't think we brought the proper fight to this game." To me, that indicates all eyes were on Miami of Ohio. The next game, they weren't necessarily on Ohio U. Saturday. Give up 13 turnovers, 13 offensive rebounds. You're giving the other team a chance to knock you off. So, on and on. Buffalo didn't play with 100% focus in that game on Saturday. Now, who are they when they are 100% focused? They're one of the MAC's best offensive teams that can't play any defense whatsoever. And if you're just going by what's going on this season, statistically, ATS wise, inside the conference, you probably want Miami. Miami's 4-0 on the conference road against the spread this year. They go on the road, it doesn't matter. They just win and cover. The Buffalo side is the exact opposite, and they've lost their last 4 at home against the spread. And they've been to teams that are in the upper echelon of the MAC, right? Kent State can't get the job done. Akron can't get the job done. Ohio U can't get the job done. UMass can't get the job done. I was impressed by Miami of Ohio on Saturday to be able to come out. Not that beating Northern Illinois constitutes as any great win, but it was on the heels of the close call against UMass, and Miami O just bounced right back. Difference between these two, reading some quotes, I think Miami sees the path where they're going, and you have player quotes and you have coaches quotes about talking about focusing on defense from here on out. Held Northern Illinois to 61 points the other day. Again, we're not going to take anything from that because Northern Illinois is not a good basketball team. But Antoine Woolfolk says, I'd rather hold a team to 60 points and win than score in the hundreds. I think we can score with anybody, but if we continue to lock down on defense, the sky will be the limit for us. You go to head coach Travis Steele, who basically says the same thing. We have good spurt ability. We can score in bunches, but our defense is what allows you to get those big runs. Goes on to say our offense is elite. On the defensive side, I want to be elite too. That's what great teams are. The defensive disparity as it is, without Miami being great in league play between these two, is huge. Buffalo just can't stop anybody. But again, like you say, in that first game, their big three, Freetag, Sable, and Brizzy, went crazy. All had over 20 points, all did their end of the, their share of the work, and they're capable of doing it again. So for me, I would probably take slight lean toward Miami. It's the proven road commodity inside league against the team that does not win on the road. You could play win at home. You could play the do factor and say Buffalo's due to cover one at home. I guess they've got revenge, etc. They can score. Total would be always what attracts me in this particular matchup. And we're looking at 164.5. Haven't gotten there yet, Adam, but it seems like it would be a higher scoring game. Last week you joked and said, maybe, Rob, you just stay away from the Miamis because they both hurt me last week.
Yeah.
And my look at Miami, Ohio's team total in this one was the initial way I thought I would go. Again, I haven't gotten anywhere with it yet. Still on the table to be a play, but I just don't know that I want to bet against Miami at this point. Like I say, they showed resiliency Saturday. They could have easily let down against Northern Illinois. They did not. And it seems, again, like the team mentally has a path that they want to follow with getting better on defense. We'll see if they do so tonight against Buffalo.
I think they're going to destroy Buffalo here. I haven't bet this yet, but I'm hearing a lot. I think you're going to have a very, you just watch your Twitter today. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, people making a case for Buffalo that probably haven't watched either of these teams play yet this year. Off of the fact that, they're home against the ranked team. They did almost win the first meeting. So credit to them for that effort in the first meeting. They played a great game. Miami of Ohio probably caught sleeping a little bit there. And suddenly Buffalo was in that game. And you could argue they could have won. Here's my problem with Buffalo in this game. They probably need to score 100 points to cover this number. They're probably going to need to score 90. Let's just the conservative side to cover this number. You go back to the first meeting, they had a very good offensive game in that game, right? 53.8% from the field. They hit 13 threes. You can say, they should have won, but they didn't. They ended up losing on the road. Miami of Ohio is now going to be ready for that, in my opinion. They're not taking Buffalo lightly like they maybe did in the first meeting. You talked about the Buffalo defense. It's not great. This is a team coming into the MAC. I knew that Buffalo couldn't be worse than they were the last 2 years, which was as bad as. So of course up here Buffalo, we had the great years with Nate Oates. Nate Oates, I believe it was Jim Whitesell after him, and he had good teams. He had good Buffalo teams. Halkovich from Villanova comes in and really had a mess those first couple of years, but I think some of those guys were point shaving. I think it came out after the fact. I forget, maybe it was Isaiah Adams that was on that in that document, but the point is he had rosters that were working against him the first couple of years. Just, they were holdovers from the previous regime. So I like the direction Buffalo's going in, but these two teams are not equal in my opinion. Miami of Ohio spaces the floor as good as anyone. They are going to rip apart basically any defense, especially a bad defense like Buffalo's. So when you look at this from a matchup standpoint, you got to like Miami of Ohio. I get if you want to give me the counterpoint and say, well, Miami of Ohio's got a target on their back. Now, yeah, I can see that. Sure, it's probably going to be a good, it'll probably be Buffalo's like most hype home game in a while. They probably will have fans. They had like 6,000 for St. Bonaventure earlier this year. So I think they'll get a decent turnout because the kids are on campus for this one. So yeah, I mean, you have both. Those are the only things working in Buffalo's favor here, in my opinion. The fact that they all the pressure maybe is on the visitors being undefeated, and that they should have a good crowd. From a basketball standpoint, Miami of Ohio should shred this team. They're probably going to hit their team total. They're probably going to score, and it's probably going to take another 50+% effort from the field from Buffalo to cover 4.5 or 5, whatever it is. If you don't get that, look for Miami of Ohio by double digits. I have not played this yet. I don't know if I Rob, I'm over here talking like that it's going to be so easy for Miami of Ohio, and I still can't bring myself to click Miami of Ohio in the, in the account, in the system, because it is in that weird range where it's 4.5, 5, and it's like, yeah, Buffalo could clip that at the end. Joey Cheese is all 100%. He goes, Joey Cheese says Buffalo without a doubt will be the Twitter capper play of the day. He's so right about that. And Joey, how many of those Twitter cappers watch a minute of Buffalo basketball this year is what I want to know. So yeah, the only way I could play this would be Miami of Ohio, and I actually think you're getting a little bit of a bargain at 4.5. That seems like overshaded to the Buffalo side, Rob Bino.
Yeah, and again, numbers do move as we speak, Adam. You see some Buffalo love at some places here. You also see it's a pretty weird line movement. I see some 5.5s down to 4.5s, and I see some 5s going up to 5.5. So dependent upon where you go, who you want, you can shop to the best of the number for either side. I think one of the points you made is so true, Adam, that Miami of Ohio first time around probably was not really all that worried about losing to Buffalo, get caught up in a game and Buffalo has scoring capability, right? I mentioned those big three and a couple of, Brizzy, it's like his fourth school in 4 years. But he and Freitag, et cetera, they played as good as they can play. Miami also played tremendously offensively in that game. And second time around, you have to believe that Miami knows what's coming at them. That's why I think I said earlier that kind of impressed that they went out and just got to business and destroyed Northern Illinois off of that close call with Massachusetts. It shows me that they can focus when necessary. And the fact that they're all talking about, from coach to players, talking about getting better on defense is even more impressive to me. So I think they have their sights set on bigger things in March Madness, and they seem to want to put in the work to get there. Peter Suter and company, I could still maybe get to this over 83.5 in this game. We'll see how it goes during the day.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I've got 2 plays locked in already. This is a candidate for a third. I see Jacob in the chat was like, man, if this gets knocked down to 4, I'm probably in with Miami of Ohio. I think I'd be with you. I think that would, I don't think I could pass that up. I'm even 4.5 right now. Most of the 4.5s are -115. If this even got to 4.5, -110, I may just have to do it. I just see such a good matchup there for the Red Hawks. And yeah, it's again, I think going back to what you said, first time around, Buffalo was like a 10-point dog. right? Now
Yeah.
they're on Miami of Ohio's radar now. All right, let's move along. Let's go to Garth in the chat. Garth with the donation, much appreciated. We appreciate all you guys. Joey Cheese, I see your play. I liked your comment about the Twitter capper play of the day, so I'll get your game in next. But let's go to Garth first. Rob, I was actually at the first meeting between these two teams at Carnesecca Court earlier this year, DePaul versus St. John's. I think I texted you either the following morning or when I was leaving that game. And I said, I left this game more impressed with DePaul than I was with St. John's at the time. Now, you have to go back. I believe that was one of the first Big East games for either of these teams this year, because that was like mid-December. So I'm pretty sure it was either the Big East. Yeah, I think it was the Big East opener for both teams. St. John's ended up winning the game 79-66. It ended up being an easy cover for DePaul. DePaul was a 19.5-point underdog in that game. And I kind of think what I saw there has played out where, St. John's is, yes, they're 9-1. Congratulations. Being 9-1 against the teams they're 9-1 against, I still contend is not overly impressive. But DePaul has been, I would say, reasonably good. I know they're only 4-7, but this is a team the last few years that struggled to even win a conference game here and there. So the fact that they have 4 conference wins, tough loss last time out against Xavier, lose by 2, went on the road, competitive with Butler. They've been in a lot of these games. And the thing that's nice for them is, going forward, they actually have quite a few home games, and they'll finish the season with like 3 of, a couple at home as well. This one is out in Chicago tonight. Ranked St. John's coming in. Garth says DePaul has been a cover machine on the road. He also likes the under. So this game being in Chicago, do you think DePaul can cover this one at home?
I'm disappointed in DePaul. I think we chatted them up last week pretty heavily heading
Oh,
into
we
that
did
Georgetown game.
before that particular game for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they go out on the road against 2 beatable teams in the Big East. I know Georgetown is coming on a little bit right now, but Georgetown won that game 70-61. And I don't know that it was that difficult. I don't, thinking back on that game, I don't remember DePaul ever being in command at any point in time in that, when Georgetown had that thing wire to wire. And then they come back and play Xavier, a team that we know is very beatable, and they couldn't beat Xavier on the road. So now, they plateau? Did they hit their ceiling when we were chatting them up, and now they're just showing us who they really are? I mean, I know you've said all season long, rightfully so, that the Big East is just disastrous this year where Big East standards are concerned. And DePaul's showing you that even a middling team or less than middling team can have their high point in the season and get even guys like us a little bit excited about their prospects, and then just, not beat teams like Georgetown and Xavier on the road. Neither one. Not saying they had to beat both, but couldn't beat either one. Question is, now you're back home. Are they more comfortable at home? Probably so. I worry about them turnover-wise here, Adam. It's not a team that's that great at ball handling, and St. John's, obviously, with that style, takes the ball away, gets a lot of their points. Was interesting just to see this morning, and again, there's 33 conferences, 34 conferences or whatever, and Big East is one of the biggest, but I was unaware that St. John's now stands as the number 1 offensive efficiency team in this league. For all the problems that St. John's has had, Rick Pitino has them coming along pretty well at this point in time on the offensive end. It's not, last year's team was better, but last year's team was brick city in defense. This team shoots it a little bit better than that team did. Maybe not as good athletically or personnel-wise. I don't want to lay a lot of points with them here, Adam, because I do know that DePaul at home tonight could be primed for trying to get a little bit of revenge for the game earlier, but I don't see these teams going in the same upward direction. I think St. John's is getting better as the year goes on, a typical Pitino type team, where DePaul is, they're a crapshoot on any given night. For me, it would probably be a pass on the side and maybe a slight look toward this total. Again, St. John's, if they get if they get bonus points off of steals and turnovers, then they're going to get their share. They're going to get close to 80. And DePaul at home, does it help their offensive output? Maybe. It was bad last game against Xavier. I'm a big bounce back guy. I think if you can only score 66 against Xavier, your next game at home, you should be a little bit better. So maybe the total comes into play for me. Sidewise, I think St. John's clearly wins the game. I just don't know if I want to lay this type of number on the road.
Um, I I don't know that St. John's just has a clear win here. I think it would be a pretty big upset if DePaul comes out and wins this game outright, but I think they're going to have a chance. I think they're going to be in this game. I'll go back. So I've seen St. John's play in person twice this year. I was at the first meeting between these two teams, and I was at the St. John's Villanova game a couple weeks ago. That one was in Philly. I was more impressed with how DePaul played against St. John's than I was with Villanova, which is a little bit relevant because Villanova, like, they kind of came back at the end. If you look at the box score, you're like, oh, that was a decent game. You know, St. John's went on the road and won by 7, but that really wasn't a great game. It was like close in the first half, and Villanova really just wasn't very good in the second half. The first meet, so again, tough, having to play the first meeting of this between these two teams is Carnesecca Court. So it wasn't at the Garden. That's always going to be tougher. It was a sold out crowd. It was early December, which meant students were still there, I believe. I mean, even if there wasn't, students were still there. It was sold out. So it was still a great crowd, 5,000 seat arena in Queens. And DePaul went down early, like St. John's had a little spurt early to give themselves a lead. Like maybe halfway through the first half, if I remember correctly. And DePaul really couldn't overcome that. They kept making a run. They would get it to they cut into it, but they really couldn't overcome, being down early. That being said, the rest of that game, you'll call it the last 20 to 25 minutes of that game, very, very competitive. If you weren't looking at the scoreboard, you'd say, oh, this was a pretty even game. Game turns out to be a 79-66 final. But again, it was, in my opinion, it was a competitive basketball game. 4 straight wins on their home floor for DePaul. So right now in Big East play, DePaul's won 4 straight at home. Their only Big East home loss was UConn way back in early December. They've now beat Xavier, Georgetown, Marquette, and Seton Hall in consecutive home games. So that's pretty impressive to me. They've been playing well at home. And so again, I like DePaul plus the points here. If Garth, if you're going to play this game, I think I would prefer DePaul plus the points, but it might correlate a little bit with the under because they can't just let St. John score at will if they want to cover this number. All right, let's quick promo. It's $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk. You know what that means. Every handicapper is going to have a play up for $5. I know I'm going to have one. I just haven't put it up yet because I'm probably going to give you one of my other ones for free on the show. If it comes up, we'll see. Rob and I will be going for another parlay win. Rob, after yesterday's win, we're down like 2.6 units on the year for the parlay. So we very well, if we go 2-teamer, both at like that -110 range, we might be playing to be even on the year. Which would be, again, it's pretty, I'll call that an accomplishment. It's February. We've been playing a parlay every day. If we can get to like even where we have a chance to be ahead, that's pretty good. So stay tuned with us for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be locking in at least 2 parlay legs. Who knows? Maybe even make it a 3-teamer. We'll probably do one at least some point this week. That's a 3-teamer. But yeah, so if you're waiting for the plays, stick around. We'll have at least 2 of them the rest of the way. In the meantime, let's go to Mad Max. Mad Max, thank you for the donation to the show. It is greatly appreciated. Mad Max says South Carolina off an overtime loss. Texas on a roll. Texas is strong at home. He's leaning Texas -13.5. Rob, I've been talking way too much, so I'm going to let you have the floor on this one. He says team total or spread. Do you like the Longhorns in any capacity here?
Well, I would answer that by saying I don't like South Carolina in any capacity at this point in time. I mean, this team's going downhill like an avalanche in a hurry. Texas A&M give up 92, Florida give up 95, LSU give up 92, albeit in overtime. LSU was a team that even with Dean Thomas was still having a ton of issues trying to win games. They get that win in South Carolina. South Carolina's a bad basketball team. And one thing you've been able to count on them for in the past is a good defensive end of the basketball court. But it's just not the case anymore, right? Arkansas hit them for 108. Oklahoma got them for 76. There's no reason why Texas off of the Oklahoma game and now looking for an opportunity to stack wins because we know what seedings mean at this point in time, whether it be conference tournament, whether it be March Madness positioning. But you've got back-to-back winnables here at home this week. This could be a big week for Texas. You got South Carolina and Ole Miss. No reason why you shouldn't be both. So I expect Texas to be fired up and ready to go here. I've said before that in any of these sports, college football, NFL football, NBA, college basketball, what players love most is putting up numbers. And when you get a team that you can put up statistical numbers against, generally guys do that. Texas, Adam, it's been a little bit corrected. Go back 2 weeks to when we did our first Saturday show with Kelly. And I read this Sean Miller quote who said, "We will foul the SHIT out of anybody." They haven't fouled as much as of late. It was a problem that he wanted to have corrected. Thought they were giving away too many points on the free throw line. South Carolina has difficulty scoring anyway, so you don't want to give them anything free on the foul line. I think in this particular instance, let's get the current team total up here because that's usually where I'm at. To answer the question in the chat, and I forget who asked it, I apologize. I do think Texas wins by margin here. Mad Max, apologize, Max. I do think they win by margin, but just the nature of the way I bet, I think 80.5 point total for Texas to go over here against this South Carolina defense that is absolutely falling off a cliff is probably the way I would look with a little more conviction. For Texas to get 80 plus at home. And as I mentioned, Sean Miller's a good head coach. And he's going to look at this week's schedule the same way I just looked at it. Guys, we got two right here. The SEC's hard enough, but we got two that we can go out and win. I think they'll be fired up. I think they get 80 plus. So I would think that's the way I would go. Not that laying the points is a bad idea, but I think a better idea is to play Texas up and over 80.5.
Yeah, I mean, I like Texas at the opener. I don't know if you'll have a chance at 11.5 at any point the rest of the day. Even 12 would be fine. Where 13.5 some places is probably getting a little bit out of the range where I'd be comfortable like taking 2 points worse than what it could have had on the open. But I mean, Texas winning by 25 wouldn't surprise me either. We had South Carolina on the show a couple weeks ago, and I think we kind of fired it in at the gun, like to get one more in at the horn, and we both kind of looked at each other and was like, well, we don't have a great handicap here, but like Florida's probably going to win by 100, and that's exactly what happened. It was just a no contest. That was a couple games ago for South Carolina. They were just ripped to shreds by Florida. That was a home game for South Carolina, 95-48. They lost that game. Now, I'm not saying that Texas is Florida. They're not, but they're certainly a far more formidable opponent than LSU is, especially without Thomas. I'll go back to the game. It was the Kentucky game. So it was the game right after they had gotten their two big wins back to back. They beat Alabama and they beat Vanderbilt. They turned around and lost to Texas A&M. And I remember we did the show. I had a 4%er in that game on Texas. And I said, I said, I think their season is, I think you actually were the one that brought it up and said, maybe those two wins and then Miller ripping them a little bit was going to turn their season around. I turned around and bet Texas +7. They covered, but they lost the game. And then we were on with Kelly for the Georgia game. And I noted, I said, they lost that game. I felt like they didn't even play very good. They still covered the 7 and they came out and just destroyed Georgia. That I felt like they played pretty good against Auburn. They covered that game. So 4 straight wins against the spread, even though Texas is 2-2 their last 4 games, they've covered all 4 of them over the weekend. Good second half for them. They pull away from Oklahoma, who is another inferior team. So yeah, I mean, you can look at this week and say, okay, where's Texas going to slip up, right? Like maybe one of these next two is close. That wouldn't surprise me, Rob. I guess like you look at the week as a whole, they're going to be at home. They're going to probably be big favorites in both. Do they cover the number in both of them? I don't know. I mean, it's still Texas. It's still,
Right.
they still find ways to beat themselves on occasion. But here, I just wouldn't want South Carolina. So 11 or 12, I think I'm okay with. But because I look at this week as a whole and see these two games coming up where Texas is likely double-digit favorite, they're probably going to cover one of them and one will be close. I don't know if they'll lose either, but they'll probably have a scare in one of these two. Figuring out which one it is the challenge, I suppose. So maybe you just go team total and take it out of the equation.
Yeah, you know what? That point you just made, Adam, is so true and comes up every day for guys betting games. Um, and it's not situational, it's not fundamental. There's no quantifying what kind of handicap that is. But any of us that have done this for a long period of time look at that set of games and just know there's probably not two double digit favorite covers in those two games. There's not. If you want to take a chance and project which one you think it's going to be, for myself, I would think that it's back to back home games. I said two or three times I think they'll be fired up. I think it would be the first game. I think that's the game they come out with the momentum. And then maybe if they blow this team out tonight, you come back with a lackadaisical effort on Saturday. Texas, just again to reiterate, and I didn't see this coming, how good the offense could and would end up being for Sean Miller. Their second best offensive efficiency team in the SEC, which is saying something. But their last three games from the field, they've shot 58.3, 52, and 60%. The game you talked about, Adam, against Kentucky, where you thought they didn't play very well, and they didn't. They were 2 for 18 from three, 11% from three-point land, and still got to 80 points, which is saying something. So you're only asking for 81 tonight at home against South Carolina. I think that's probably the safest way to go.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones too. You can watch a little of the game if Boca Titus is getting comfy under there and he's able to get what he wants and he's not in foul trouble, that Texas could run it up. If conversely though, if you can somehow get him in foul trouble and get him off the court, that's where you maybe try to take a shot live betting South Carolina, because there is a big difference for Texas when he's effective and he's on the court against when he's in foul trouble and he's not there. So yeah, interesting game. Mad Max, good luck with however you decide to play that one. All right, I promised Joey Cheese I'd hit this game, and his comment made me laugh. So we're gonna give him this one. He wants to talk St. Bonaventure and Dayton, Rob, which is an intriguing game to me because I live out here in Bonnie's country, central New York. St. Bonaventure is west of here. Actually, it's quite a bit. It's not easy to get to. It's still like even though it's not as far out as Buffalo, you have to go quite a bit south. So it would still take me like 3.5 hours to get to Olean. There's no direct route from where I live either. It is a rough drive. But a lot of guys in this area went to St. Bonaventure and stuff like that. So I've always, we have Mallory's family has a bunch of people. I think her one cousin is playing hockey there right now. So some Bonnies in the family here. And this was a year that they were pretty excited about this team, right? The whole, it's like year 2 of Woj. They're getting these like NBA like team days in the off season or something like that, whatever he drummed up there. And coming into the year, they had a pretty good non-conference, relatively good. And right now, Rob, the only team worse in the Atlantic 10 is Loyola Chicago, who is having a historically bad season. So I almost don't know what to make of that. It's like they keep finding themselves on the wrong end of close games. Over the weekend, George Mason, that would have been, that was a game they were right there, 8-point lead at halftime, would have been a huge win for them, but they just can't get it done. Losing a close one to LaSalle earlier this year, losing a close one to St. Joe's earlier this year, lost by 4 to Fordham. Those are all like one possession games, right? So we could be sitting here, things could look a lot different if St. Bonaventure was coming on the right side of some of these one possession games. Dayton on Friday night. I was at the Dayton game. They played St. Louis. That game was over before it started, and it wasn't really Dayton's fault. That's just how good this St. Louis team is. That's how good, that's how efficient St. Louis's offense is, where it was like Dayton just had no chance, right? They had no chance. St. Louis is just an incredible team this year. And so I don't even fault Dayton for getting crushed, and maybe as much as I would in other years, because I think St. Louis just has an incredible team. So now, Rob, where I'm at a little crossroads here for Joey Cheese, because on one hand, Dayton should match up much better with the Bonnies, and this should be a much more favorable situation for them at home. On the other hand, St. Bonaventure plays all these close games. So do you really want to lay 8.5, 9 against the Bonnies? I don't know. What do you think? St. Bonaventure, Dayton, do you have anything on the total?
I could answer whether or not I want to lay 8.5 in 2 capital letters. No, just no way. We went through the Dayton St. Louis game that you were at Friday morning on this show. And, the back-to-back losses to LaSalle and St. Joe's were concerning to me. Anthony Grant has kind of lost contact with this team. Then they lose to Rhode Island in overtime. And then the St. Louis destruction happened. You could see it coming from a mile away. Now you get back home. Can you regroup off a 4-game losing streak and beat St. Bonaventure? Answer is probably yes. Are you going to beat them by 9 or 10 points? Answer is probably no. I mean, I don't want to bet either of these teams, to tell you the truth. Neither one. St. Bonaventure has absolutely lost. Mark Schmidt teams throughout his entire tenure at St. Bonaventure have been annually known as solid defensive ball clubs. They don't defend at all this year. 302nd in the country against the 3. Just not a good defensive team. They've lost their identity. Some games they score big. Some games they don't score at all. It's a mixed mash of results with St. Bonnie. So I don't like them in almost any circumstance. I don't like Dayton in any circumstance right now. Obviously, Dayton's kind of the same thing. Lost their identity under Anthony Grant. When you have 2 teams that you view that way, Adam, and you see 8.5 points, you probably take. And the old adage, gun to the head, what would you do? I would take St. Bonaventure plus 8.5, because you can't trust Dayton at this point in time. They've won 1 game. In Atlantic 10 play, they've won 1 game by this margin all season long, and that was Loyola Chicago. And Loyola Chicago, they played them to a 2-point game and then a 27-point win. But other than that, there have been no wins by 9 points by Dayton inside this league. So what makes you think they're going to do it tonight? I don't know. Here's the problem mindset-wise with Dayton. Did that 102-71 just absolutely crush their spirits? Did that just tell this team that, you know what? We got no shot this year. We're in this league. We're looking uphill. And Dayton, a team that usually has expectations, may have had them crushed by St. Louis. Or does Anthony Grant get in that locker room and have this team reset, refocus? Listen, guys, the A-10 tournament's in a couple of weeks. We got to stack some wins here. We're still 5-4 in league. We're not that bad off, etc. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's an important question inside the locker room. At St. Bonnie plus 8.5 probably is the way to go. And as far as total is concerned, on my card here, the rotation card that I printed out, I just put a red line through the game because I don't know what kind of offensive and defensive results to expect from either of these teams on a given night. So no total. If I had to play, I'd be on St. Bonnie.
Yeah, like in different years, I would say, oh, this is such a great spot for Dayton at home. But like this is just not a Dayton team that I think is even remotely comparable to some of the teams they've had in past years. Now, on the flip side, like if you're talking like a mentality standpoint, I actually prefer the Dayton side here because I'll go back to that game was over so quickly, Rob. That game was over in the first half. Okay. And I think Anthony Grant, if I'm Anthony Grant, I'm just like, hey, don't sweat this one. That is an insanely good basketball team. And they just dropped 102 points on one of the most efficient, St. Louis hit 62.5% of their shots from the field and 17 threes. They were 17 for 28 from 3. If I'm Anthony Grant, I'm going in and saying, forget about that game. Just get it out of your head. There's nothing we could have done there. They hit 17 threes. The ball movement was insane. They did everything right. Shot 63% from the field. Like, what do you even do right there? If you're St. Bonaventure, I almost feel like the result against George Mason is far worse, is far more crushing, because you had your chance, in my opinion, to somewhat turn your season around. You had the road win over Duquesne. Remember, this is after the Bonnies got destroyed in similar fashion by St. Louis, right? And that was arguably worse because that was in Olean, and they had a sellout. They thought they were going to pull the upset, and they were dead on arrival too. So, you come in another huge home game over the weekend. Looking at that game, St. Bonaventure was only like a 1-point underdog, right? The books were basically saying like they thought the Bonnies had a pretty good chance to win or could win that game. You have an 8-point lead at halftime and you still find a way to lose. So for me, you go back to the defense. I really think St. Bonaventure thought that they would be a destination for some of the guys they got in the portal the last couple of years. And it's been a little bit of a rude awakening, like with guys like Melvin Council only coming for a year and then finding a better spot. There's another one that I think ended up on VCU, right? Like there's a couple of guys that have come through this program that I think they thought they were going to have for multiple years. And it ended up being just sort of a stop, have a good year, and then leave. So I think that's hurt them. Obviously, I mean, Melvin Council, Rob, right? Imagine imagine having him. Look at what he's doing at Kansas now. So, man, this is tough. I listen, Joey's usually not like, if he's confident like this, I don't like to go against him because he picks his spots well. So, Joey, I hate to like spend this long on a game and not really give a pick, but this is also the point of this show, is to just, try to give different viewpoints and give you guys information. I saw someone earlier said, thank you guys. You helped me cash with Boston U and Bethune-Cookman yesterday. That's really the goal. I don't have a definitive answer here, but Dayton at home off of 4 straight losses, having hung it up in the first half of that game, would not surprise me if they win and potentially win comfortably. It's just so hard to know where the heads are at for these respective teams right now. So that's probably why it's just a pass for me. And then, Bayou. Sometimes the best play is no play. There's a lot of really good games on the spots. But I'm not going to listen. If Joey loves the Dayton side, I can't talk him off. So Joey, good luck if you decide to play that one. All right, Rob, I'll give you the right of refusal here. All right. If you want to lock your parlay leg in, go ahead. Otherwise, if you want another minute, I'll do mine. It's up to you. It's your call. You're muted though, so it's a mystery to all of us still.
I'm gonna let you do yours. Sorry.
All right. All right. I'll do mine. This is one of my client plays. This is a 4%er for me. So I'm gonna use this one. I'm gonna lay it with Boise State tonight. They are at home. They're at home against Nevada. Some of you guys are like, oh, of course you're going to do that. You went against Nevada on Friday and took it on the chin, got destroyed in that game. That is true. But Rob, I think that some of that loss on Friday had more to do with UNLV just being a total disaster right now than it did Nevada being like some, team that I'm scared to bet against. Boise State was a team I got to see in person last year. I went to the pit in New Mexico, and they got crushed in that game. And something I was, kind of picked up when I was there talking to some people, which made sense, which was not fully on my radar prior to that trip, was Boise State really lacks athletes. Like this team, and it's been this way for a couple of years, where they just don't have like a super athletic team. Leon Rice seems to build these teams where it's like they've got some shooters. It's not that they can't be physical at times, but they just don't have like crazy athletic teams. And so in a matchup like New Mexico or last year's New Mexico team or some of the more athletic teams in the league, it can hurt them. Nevada is not that team. And Nevada's not going to like punish you with athleticism. Nevada's not going to, take the ball, put it on the floor, drive it down your throat and get to the rim. What they're going to do is just bomb threes. And they've done it at a very impressive clip this year. Believe they come into play 11th in the country shooting the three. Now, you go back to the first meeting and you might say, Trig, well, Nevada, they won 81-66 in that first meeting. That is true. But that was also way back in December. It was a home game. That was December 20th. No, it's kind of in that weird part of the season where it's finals. It's right before Christmas. I don't even know why Mountain West is playing league games on December 20th. Someone's going to have to explain that one to me. That seems like an awful time to have a league game when you basically have like kids leaving for Christmas, that Christmas break in a couple of days. Nevada only took 9 threes in that game, which is also surprising to me. 34 foul shots. That's a game that I may have to go back and look more into that. Although I already played this, so I guess I'm not. I guess I'll use my time to look at something else. Point is this: Nevada has to go on the road now. I tend to want to fade teams, Rob, that are very, very 3-point reliant on the road. Okay. And I also think Boise is the type of team that would prefer if you just stay on the perimeter and try to shoot. I think it gives them a better chance defensively. And then you talk about like Boise at home, the splits have been better. And Boise should be able to run their offense here. So to me, this feels like a game where maybe Nevada finally goes a little bit cold from 3, has a tougher shooting night. And if that's the case, I think Boise's actually the team that's pulling away in the revenge meeting. So I laid 5.5. You can actually get 5s at this point, some places on Boise. I think we're looking at a double-digit Boise win. This is going to be a good night for the Broncos, in my opinion, Rob Vino.
Very nice. I don't hear much in there that I could disagree with on the Boise State side against Nevada. And that conference, again, that's one where, for the most part, teams bash each other around. It's a tough conference to go through unblemished.
Let me ask you this question real quick, Rob. Because this is a league where typically you're paying a massive tax for the home team. I don't feel like I'm paying the tax here. I think I'm getting almost a bargain on Boise at home relative to like what it would be if Boise was considered this juggernaut this year.
Very true. Very true. Generally speaking, that Boise tax is higher than what we're seeing here tonight. That's for sure. And some of that could be in Nevada recent play. I mean, again, the win over Grand Canyon the other night, we talked about it at length, but Nevada's been playing pretty well this season. So I guess a little combination of both. Boise hasn't been up to expectations. Nevada's been a little above expectations, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I could see Boise. That's a tough trip. We'll see how Nevada handles it, but I could see that happening here. Let's go. Wow, Adam, if I knew the exact status of Rob Whaley, I would be on Kent State team total over tonight, but I just don't know. And it's so hard. As you were talking, I was trying to dig even further because I'm thinking, you know what? I want to get these guys on Kent State, but I can't do it until I know. Let's go ahead and take something that I feel extremely confident in. We'll go back to A10. Do I want to go there? I think I'd rather go back. I think I'd rather go back to the Missouri Valley because I've always got multiple choices when we come on in the morning. But I'm going to go back to the Missouri Valley, and I'm going to take my shot here with Murray State team total over 81.5. And I'm a Belmont guy, right? They absolutely dismantled Murray State. You talk about the St. Louis game with Dayton the other night, Dayton being dead on arrival. Murray State was dead on arrival.
I was on them. I was on Murray in that game. And that was 22-4 right off the rip.
From the outset. And just the amount of players that Casey Alexander has on this day. I mean, he went to a kid that's only played 36 minutes all season long that absolutely walked out and shredded it from 3 that night. But everything was falling for Belmont, but they're that good. They played again without Sam Orm, without Nick McLean. You're not supposed to get away with that if you're Belmont. That's two of your three best players, but yet they're so deep, they're so good. Murray State, with their lack of defense, just ran into a buzzsaw. They couldn't overcome it. As good as they are offensively, they couldn't overcome it. Tonight they're back home. They're on a 4-game losing streak here, and they got to right the ship at some point in time. I'm not going to trust them to go out and beat Illinois Chicago by margin, although the money has come in fairly heavily on the Murray State side here. People expecting them to come back and bounce back to the form that they were playing about 5 games ago. And again, we talk about this every single day, about these stretches in conference season where, yeah, you have these ruts. Vanderbilt had this rut, right? They were undefeated, get whacked 3 straight times, turn it right around. I don't know that they'll cover the number, but I think they're going to score again. It's what they do best. They just didn't have enough to overcome what Belmont was throwing at them the other night, and it became obvious after about the first 10 minutes. Here, Oddsmaker is asking us to get over 81.5. In fact, I'm seeing some 82.5s now, Adam. 81.5 is available. I don't know. We'll figure out fairness when we figure out the final parlay at the end of the show. But I think there's a big bounce back here for Murray State, a team that scored 83 against Illinois Chicago the first time at Illinois Chicago, which is a good team in the Missouri Valley as well. Going to be up and down. I think the number indicates to everybody that there's going to be a high-scoring game. Both sides may get to 80. But I think the one that definitely will get to 80 is Murray State at home in this contest. So for me, it's really simple of a bounce back in. I'm going to call this like a sense of urgency play. If you're Murray State, it's a sense of urgency type game at home in front of your home fans to reestablish yourselves. They're not good enough on the defensive end for me to recommend laying the points, although I wouldn't talk you off of it. But I do think if you're looking at scoring points, Murray State's the way to go here. So give me Murray State up and over that team total of 81.5. And I'll research it real quick here, Adam, while we move on, just to make sure that 81.5 is available in multiple spots so that we can use that in the parlay. If it happens to be 82.5, I'm not afraid of that number either.
Yeah, Murray State -6 is very much on my short list for a lot of the reasons that you just said. Also, I guess you could say there's an element of being a little bit stubborn as well. That 6 is probably rogue at this point. I see Caesars is at 6, but a lot of these other places, 6.5. I even see some 7s at this point. Although it looks like the 7s are at some of the sharper books. So do what you will with that. It seems like some of the sharper spots are like trying to attract some of that ARB Illinois Chicago money. What that tells you is they probably think Murray State could smash as well. It's definitely, Rob, a sell, kind of like Illinois Chicago's probably due for a loss. Murray State's due for a win type spot. Illinois Chicago has been way better than anyone could have ever imagined they would be in Valley play so far this year. Whereas like Murray State, they just got to figure it out offensively. If they can come out and get their offense back in check, they're going to win this game by double digits. The problem is they have been on a stretch where their defense has been horrific and they also can't make a shot. Yeah. Not a great combo. If you're playing, not a great combination for trying to win basketball games is when you're in an offensive rut and a defensive rut at the same time. And you certainly can't get away with that against Belmont. You're just not going to get away with that. And in this league, Rob, this is like, you're not going to get away with that against the better teams in this league. You might get away with it at home against Illinois Chicago. But if Murray State can somehow get their offense back to functional status, I'd be really surprised if this isn't like a double-digit margin game. So I'm with you. If that happens, you're probably going to get the team total over.
And guys, as bad as Saturday was at Belmont, Murray State found their way to 86. And we're looking. I'm just looking here, Adam. In fairness to the chat, I know everybody doesn't have the available outlets that a lot of us have, but it looks like that there's more 82.5s out there than 81.5s. Again, if you can shop it, get the 81.5. But for parlay use on the show, I'm going to go with 82.5 to be fair here.
All right, yeah, I'll go with Boise -5.5, even though you can get some 5s out there as well. Rob, we have 5 minutes left. Let's get one more in I'm gonna really quickly. Oh, all right. Let's go random here. I saw two people ask about this game. Daryl Turner says, anyone like Tennessee Martin to cover or the other side tonight with Little Rock? So let's talk some Ohio Valley real quick to close out the show. I was at Tennessee Martin's game on Thursday. They were impressive as I expected them to be. They are, the thing with Tennessee Martin though, and even though I just said that they were impressive, they were in the second half, not so much the first half. I think that they're quite inflated on the number based on what they did in the non-conference, right? They had Rob, correct me if I'm wrong. They beat UNLV. I think they played Bradley tight, might have had a couple of good wins there, covered against a power conference team, and suddenly Tennessee Martin was everyone's favorite team. Yeah, they won against UNLV. Yes. They beat Bradley. They covered against Florida State. So in this league, they're still probably the best team. They're 9-2. I think you could argue that Tennessee State might be better than them. We'll see about that. But listen, they're 9-2. They haven't lost a home game all year. They're 9-0 at home. Rob, coming into the year, I thought Little Rock was going to be the best team in this league. I was pretty confident of that. And they had a couple injuries. Gat Keck, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. He was out for a stretch in non-conference play, and he really is the anchor to their zone. So, they had a run. Little Rock had a run where they were just really bad. Tungatach Gatkek. I mean, what do I even do with that, Rob? How am I supposed to pronounce that name? Anyway, Little Rock over the weekend kind of choked a couple games away. The Tennessee State, that would have been a really good win for Little Rock at Tennessee State. They choked that one away at the end. And then they turned around and lost to Tennessee Tech. Now, some of this league you have to take with a grain of salt right now because these guys are all in that Tennessee region that's gotten crushed with weather. A lot of these games have gotten moved around. A lot of these games have gotten rescheduled. So this is going to be Little Rock's fourth straight road game right here. But Tennessee Martin kind of had two easy ones last week. Eastern Illinois, and then they got to play the worst team in this league, Western Illinois, over the weekend, where I think they won by a huge margin. So current price, I kind of lead Little Rock as a dog. I wouldn't be surprised if Little Rock found a way to win this game. Do you have anything on the total? And what do you think about maybe a live dog with Little Rock here?
Yeah, money certainly thinks so early on, Adam. Push down toward Little Rock. I would side with the total under in this game. Tennessee UT Martin's been great inside this conference defensively. Little Rock, for what it's worth, I've said it a few times this season, although it's not 100% correct anymore. Close, but not 100% correct. That Arkansas Little Rock is a team that can't shoot straight. I never trust them off of a really strong offensive performance to come back and put them together back to back. Just go through their game logs this season. Again, you'll probably find that out. But they shot better than 50% in their most recent game. And now they're going to play the number one defense inside the league. So I think Little Rock will have to work on the defensive end. UT Martin's strength is the defense. That's their anchor. So I saw 137, I think, Adam, in this game this morning. At least that's what I have written in my notes, 137. I could check it real quick here, but I think it stays under. I think you're looking at a game that probably falls in the, 68, 65. There's not a ton of wiggle room, but I would lean under in that contest between these two.
I think there's some correlation there, Rob. I think if Little Rock covers, it's 100% going to be under because they really need to sort of, make their hay, if you will, at the defensive end, right? Like they've got that 1-3-1 with Gat Keck, and they when that is working appropriately, they're going to be in games, but they're going to be in games because they're good defensively. And then maybe they're going to hit some threes, and it's going to be like a little bit disjointed offensively, but they're going to hit some threes. So I agree with the move from 8 to 6.5, and I very much agree that if Little Rock is going to cover that 6.5, it's likely staying under. And then the final layer of this, Rob, all these teams the weather has been so bad, games canceled, practice is canceled, no power in that part of the country. Probably not ideal for staying in rhythm, right? Like their schedules have been totally altered. That might play into the under as well. All right, we're right at the wire. Let's recap the parlay very quickly. Rob Bino is going with the Murray State team total over 82.5. I am going to go with Boise State spread -5.5. Rob, it would put us back to even if we can hit this 2-teamer tonight. If you're looking for all of our plays, I gave one of my client plays out. I'm going to have probably at least 3. In addition to everything Rob has, we've got that package, double the CBB firepower. It's 3 days. It's everything we play over the course of those 3 days. Appreciate you guys tuning in. It's $5 Tuesday. Check us out. Check all the other handicappers at the site out who have a $5 play, and we will see you guys back here in the morning. Good luck tonight. See you guys tomorrow.